How is it going? Today was a bit of a roller coaster. We had both Renzel and Hey It's Pixel, also known as Josh, friend of the show, on the live stream, and it kind of did a big blow up on GME, which I'm very proud of. Our GME is a community of people who do their own research, and right now one of them has thoughts about Hey It's Pixels or Josh's DD, and that's what we're going to cover right here. So here it is. On DD posts a response to Hey It's Pixel and correction of some incorrect information. Edit 2, not as dispassionate as I hope. Sorry, gang. If you read this thinking I hit the white and wanted to take out a big figure in the sub, you'd be wrong. I understand your perspective. I like and appreciate Hey It's Pixel's analysis. I agree with much of his general sentiment, as I say below multiple times. I tried to clean up some of the factual disputes to make them more readable with my point by point too long didn't reads. They're still longish, sorry. Shisa is complex. So with this, have a big bucket of salt, but give it the same amount of respect that we give it in terms of Josh's DDs. This is from a user called CP_sabotage, and let us see if this really does sabotage Josh's perspective. So ultimately though, I stand by my point. Hype posts that misrepresent facts are dangerous. Thank you, L. Randall, for that point. They don't have to say bye right now, and they don't have to be intentionally malevolent to cause harm. This is a huge forum that thousands of people read every day. People expect accuracy and honesty from the figures they elevate. They deserve that. You deserve that. I like the stock. I don't like ZOMG 60K OI change, moon confirmed, gamma squeeze definitely today or tomorrow. If that happens, it won't matter that I didn't like it or that someone said it would. A bunch of you, myself included, will make a buttload of money. But if it doesn't, it will absolutely matter. If you don't see why, buy a bunch of 300s, 400C for tomorrow and see how you feel watching the price move. You'll get to mock me if my temperance was unwarranted. Edit. Ultra too long didn't read. Read DD closely and don't assume facts and figures are correct. Pixels posts today and yesterday mistake options volume for open interest multiple times, and essentially all of his OI figures are incorrect. 60K OI increase is wrong. 20K OI increase in a few hours is wrong. Anything that posits a specific time frame in which options were purchased is wrong. Strike prices he analyzes change between posts. These pieces are fundamental to his analysis over the past couple of days, and they are all Shisa. I have no idea if this is a genuine mistake or not, and think you should look into it before assuming GME Nostradamus is all knowing. And those of you who saw the live stream today, this is pretty hard to hear, but we do want to be able to make sure that we have all of the facts. I made this as a comment. Hold on a second. I made this as a comment, but I'm becoming increasingly confident that it ought to be a post. Because of that, I'm adding some intro from the original comment at the top here. Please read the whole thing. Oh, we're seeing a big green candle on GME right now. That brought us back up to 260 after hours. Please read the whole thing. And hold on a second. I'm not out to get anyone. I personally am long GME. I like the stock, and I have high hopes for us. For its immediate and long-term future. I also know people make decisions based on posts like this, whether the author intends or accounts for that behavior. I think prominent posters need to be extremely careful and cognizant of this reality, using phrases like, this is what happened, and the squeeze is definitely happening on X date by Y time is extraordinarily irresponsible. And this is something that I've wanted to temper with the interview this morning. If you personally believe that, then I applaud your conviction and hope you'll temper it when interacting with others who may see your zealousness and mistake it for certainty. None of this was certain, and acting or implying that it is will have real-world consequences for real people. Please consider the weight of your words. Thanks, and heart. Here's a too long didn't read of what I'd post if I were going to give advice or offer my opinion on the stock, using my own advice on how to do that at the bottom of this post. I like GME. There is obviously a lot of retail and institutional interest in this stock right now, and that interest seems to exist after the big rise and fall of January. That leads me to believe that the longs are resilient and won't settle for just big gains. The people want blood. Yesterday's drop and rebound lends more credence to that idea. The high open interest in OTM calls lends credence to that idea. There is a lot of money at stake in this stock. I think it can and will go higher than the 200s it's been bouncing around today because of a combination of technical factors folks have discussed in other DD posts, positive sentiment, and most importantly for me, a huge well of positive news potentially breaking in the near future. Ryan Cohen is CEO, right? Q4 earnings, DTCC rule changes, DFV YOLO posts, just to name a few. Really pulling up the heartstrings right now because all of this is true. I do not like putting numbers on guesses because it implies a level of certainty that doesn't exist outside my own brain. Telling you that I think GME has, in my opinion, say 55% chance to hit 400 by end of day tomorrow doesn't provide any insight beyond you knowing a bit more about how my brain is broken and being able to see if I'm right or wrong tomorrow. It also oversells the upside. Even if I'm right, there's a huge 45% chance it goes down, and that downside could be anywhere potentially. Are you ready to watch your shares drop from 250 to 190 again? What if it dropped to 100? Are you really going to hold, or is that loss going to make you puke and paper hands real hard? Are you certain of what decisions you'll make based on your own personal assessment? Very, very scary bearish sentiment here, but it is a shock of reality. You have to be honest about these possibilities. If GME is going to the moon no matter what, then F me, right? Who cares about what I told you to be careful? Who cares that I told you to be careful? I'm not your dad, and you can safely ignore me and call me a dipshisa. If GME is going anywhere else, then please be careful. Please risk Vegas money, not YOLO money, if you can't handle the potential downside. Please don't bet your life on this. I love you. Original comment text on Pixel's post today. Hates Pixel made improvements in transparency in his today, which would make me somewhat happier. If I am correct with my theory, they will definitely do it today as well. Blah, 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 is what GME said. This is that's what Pixel said. This is a good way to let people know that you aren't certain, and I'm glad to see this change in tone from yesterday. However, he's still conflating volume with open interest, and it's driving me nuts, man. Volume is not the same thing as open interest. They are not synonymous, and you cannot compare the two until the OI numbers are updated the next day. So in his post today, he kind of does a two-step to make it seem like his bold 60K plus prediction yesterday was correct when it wasn't even close. Between 30,000 and 60,000 additional options were purchased over the course of a few hours, most of them at 300, 350, and 400 and 800. That's what Pixel said. Let's examine why this is incredibly misleading. 1. You have no idea when exactly options were purchased beyond the day. Open interest in options is updated after close and will only show net increases, decreases from the day before. There are no hour-by-hour OI stats. Telling people that this event happened over the course of a few hours is only true if you mean the entire trading day. Too long didn't read number 1. There is no public database that shows at what time specific options were bought and sold. Open interest represents the latest figures of yesterday's close, not an hour-by-hour breakdown. Volume is an aggregate of buys and sells and includes some new writes, some closures, and some trades. Yesterday, your big post, this is number 1, and this is number 1 again. This is just number 1, number 1, number 1 over and over again. Okay, so number 1. Now we've covered number 1, now we can go to number 1. Yesterday, your big post focused on 300, 400 strike prices, and you hypothesized that someone wants this to moon really bad and loaded up on over 30 to 60,000 additional options. Updated at 7:35 CET. That is an increase of another 20,000 calls from just 10 minutes ago. This was untrue and caused by you, again, misreading volume as open interest increases. Here's what actually happened. Thank you, Eric Mo, for this. I will look at the price fluctuations in a second. Here's what actually happened. 300 to 400 strike call open interest increased from 19,000 on the 9th of March to 30,000 on March 10th. It could be anywhere today, and you cannot know for sure until the numbers are updated after close. The actual increase here was 11,000 from strikes 300 to 400, not 20K, not 30K, not 60K, 11K. Why does this matter? Because today the target has moved. You are including the wildly large open interest at the 800 strike because it inflates the total number of open contracts and makes it seem like you were correct about the 300 to 400 prediction yesterday. The 800 strike calls alone makes, hold on, 800 strike calls alone increased by 7K. That could be due to the genius IQ ultra high level plays, or it could be explained much more simply as degenerate gamblers buying up cheap $800 strike calls when the price flatlined for a second. Neither of us knows why, and I find both explanations to be compelling. You don't mention a second explanation in either post. Why? Too long didn't read, there was indeed an increase in OI yesterday. Its magnitude is overstated both in yesterday's post and today's due to confusion of volume with OI. Today's post looks at 300 to 400 and 800 strikes and fails to analyze other strikes before coming up to 50 to 40 to 60K figure. 800 strikes are as likely to be YOLO gambles as a concerted effort to gamma squeeze. 800 strikes did not figure into yesterday's DD at all, which means they weren't important yesterday even though they have to be greater than 20K OI for weeks now. If this is confusing for you, it's heartbreaking for me because of the benefit of the doubt that we've been giving Josh in his DDs. He mentions that it is likely that this is happening because there are institutions out there who want this to happen on purpose, number one. Number two, he thinks that, such as putting GME on the SSR list. Number two, he thinks that the contracts that are added was directly due to the dip in prices based on someone very smart, but this counter DD is saying it could be based on a bunch of people being very stupid. So how can you not provide an exact figure of additional options purchased yesterday? Was it 30K or 60K? We know that 11K is attributable to increases in the 300 to 400 strike range, and based on the Optionistics site, it looks like 800 strike increased by 7,000, or from 22,000 OI at open on March 10th to 29,000 OI at open today. It's a total of a hair less than 20,000. Where do you get the rest of that insane range from? I can only attribute a bit under 20K in OI changes to the 300 to 400 and 800 strike prices. There's no chance 40K additional contracts were open at other strikes, so I have no idea where you get the upper part of that range. 30 to 40K in total might be reasonable across all strikes. I don't have time to look at the full range chain right now, but trust me, I will. Too long didn't read number 3. The figures used throughout the post flip between generic and specific, and this makes it difficult to interrogate what is fact. 300 to 400, 800 strike OI increased 20K, and what is conjecture? 40 to 60K OI have changed. I do not believe the upper range of that figure 60K is accurate, and question why a person doing this level of analysis would take a guess here instead of posting the actual figures. This is not due diligence. Pretty darning words from this counter DD. So your 30 to 60K number is by maybe 30 to 40K in new OI since yesterday. It's not 60K. How many shares would those new strikes entail if they all come in the money and get exercised? I find this possibility to be extremely unlikely, as a lot of contracts would get sold instead of exercised in order to retain some of the insane IV value, and because it's unclear if all 800 strike buyers can afford to exercise a contract that costs 80K. But let's go with it. Using your high 60K change in OI, this would equate to 6 million new shares needing to be hedged versus yesterday. This is, again, only true if these options end up in the money by tomorrow, and only true if your wild figure that has no basis in factual reality is real. If these strikes aren't in the money, market makers will not fully hedge any of them, and they may in fact already be hedged given that your deltas were all higher yesterday than they are today. You have no idea how many more shares need to be bought, if any, because you aren't making these markets. It could be 1 million, it could be 6 million, it could be 0. If these go in the money, I would agree that the gamma squeeze potential is higher since OI is also higher, and that market makers would have to buy additional shares to hedge these increased deltas. But anything else is conjecture. Too long didn't read number 4. Today's post follows yesterday's in guessing about OI increases intraday. This is again conflating volume with OI. We will not know if and by how much OI changed today until after close. Today's post additionally posits that a gamma squeeze is imminent today or tomorrow to cover the additional OI yesterday, real, and today assumed. The author has no idea if and by how much the market makers have already hedged these strikes. The author fails to address existing delta hedging and fails to address that delta on all all of these high strikes calls were higher yesterday, and therefore some hedging has already occurred. Market makers do not have to wait to hedge. They might be doing that for the 800 calls because they're so far out of the money. No one but the market makers themselves know these exact numbers. This is basically, I'm starting to see why they're all named 1, because it all has to do with conflation of OI and the actual numbers of the contracts added. So in that sense, it could be that Pixel's only mistake is conflating these two throughout his DD. Remember, as of this post, none of these new options are in the money, not even those 300 to 400 strike ones. So market makers are not fully hedging any of them at this point. Delta on the lowest of those 300 is around 0.34 as of this moment. That means that the 300 strike calls are already at 1/3 hedged. The 400 strike price calls have a delta of 0.14, same caveat. So they are 14% hedged, and 800 sit at a delta of 0.02, so they could theoretically be naked. But again, the 312 ones are currently way out of the money. This means that even if the price rockets to 300 to 400, there is no guarantee that the additional hedging will cause the price to hit 800 and then the moon. It seems likely that this could happen, but again, with the 11K increase in 300 to 400 strike OI, this is a maximum of 1.1 million new shares to hedge on that OI increase. If the calls go in the money, that number is not, in fact, 3 to 5 million. Too long didn't read number 5. Even if market makers are under hedged on these out of the money options, it would not actually matter until those strikes move closer to in the money. Even if that happened, there is no way to be certain that it would propel the price to any specific point. A gamma squeeze could occur at 300 that pushes to 350, or pushes to 400 and squeezes up to 600. It could push to 100K. It could be that we never get close to these strikes being in the money this week, and the guaranteed gamma squeeze doesn't happen at all. And this is important logical news, right? The snowball only works if there's enough snow on the ground. And now that we've sprinkled snow everywhere, where is the push to get these prices in the money? The strike prices need to be in the money in order for the snowball to grow. And as of right now, the conjecture is a guaranteed snowball avalanche. So far, we need a different catalyst to make this catalyst work. I could go on, but this Shaisa is getting tiresome and too long, so here's too long didn't read number 2. You and other smart people need to stop doing this. You need to be more sober in your analysis and more frank and clear in your presentation of data and your conclusions. If you want to be seen as someone with insight, you need to say, I think ABC will happen because of the following factors. It's possible that it doesn't happen. If it doesn't, it would likely be because of X, Y, and Z risk factors identified below. This is an unprecedented situation, and while some predictions can be accurate, we won't know exactly what will happen and exactly when it will happen until it does. This is the reason why I was pushing Pixel so much on what, just giving him an excuse of back out of your prediction of if this doesn't happen, like what is your backup plan? And essentially the conversation never really steered in that path. Even during the one out that he was given, like it might happen tomorrow, unfortunately if it doesn't happen tomorrow, he's going to have to come up with a different out. As of right now, it's pretty sobering to hear these counter DDs again. It did seem incredibly bullish on his behalf, maybe overly so, when we heard that original story. So I'm asking you guys now, be civil in the comments, but what do you think about the prediction that the gamma squeeze is inevitable? Because we still have tomorrow to decide. If you guys believe in the stock, if you like it, then you have nothing to worry about. If you guys want to do something that isn't holding or buying, that is entirely up to you, because I'm not a financial advisor and this video is not financial advice. Most importantly, I hope you continue to do your own research and take other people's DD with a big grain of salt. If you guys did want to support the show, the best way to do that is to be one of these guys with the Meatball the Professor tier on Patreon or down in the membership, or the Meatball the Space Legend tier, who is also on Patreon and down in the description below. For now, but not for forever, I will see you in space.